Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. Hey there, Brian.
Hey, Ani.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm ready to roll. How are you?
I'm really good today. Thank you.
Just ready to jump in.
What's our topic today?
Oh my gosh, so actually the next 2 weeks, we have some money mindset topics that we are going to be chatting about.
That's awesome.
Yep. And this week is the deadliest money mindset mistake you can make.
The deadliest money mindset mistake you can make. Boy, that's a good title, Brian. I wonder what it is. I can't wait to find out. Too bad it's past Halloween.
Yeah. All right. So we've got the money mindset, Ani. Well, why don't you give us a little introduction here and a little bit of money mindset, and then we'll talk about the deadliest money mindset mistake you can make.
I just want to talk about why the heck we're talking about money mindset at the Somatic Coaching Academy for a second.
Go for it, please.
Well, the thing is that money touches every aspect of our lives. In order to survive as humans, unless you live in a place where you grow all of your own food, then you need to live to survive. You need air, and then you need water, and then you need money. Because we buy our food and stuff, So money is intimately intertwined with everything that we do as humans. And since we, as humans, use our bodies, that's really important. The other thing, of course, is that how we think about things in life are all interwoven into our physiology. Our beliefs are all in here. And what we believe, how we operate around, how we act about, act on, interact with, talk about, think about, and feel about everything is in our bodies. And money is one of the big things that's in our lives for us to work with.
Yeah. As you're talking about money as a part of everything, Ani, we live in the northern part of New York State in like a very rural country area.
Where there's actually farms.
There's actually farms, but there are actually a fair number of Amish people that live in communities around where we live.
Yeah.
And you might think that Amish communities are self-sustaining because Amish communities, in fact, do grow their own food.
Yeah.
Right. And do their own schooling and those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well,
however, but if you look around at our communities, Amish people are trading services for money.
A lot. We have
a lot of it.
Bed on our property right there that we paid Amish money for. So they also still use money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're selling things and building and constructing. So they're still working with cultures, ideas, concepts, whatever, that still require an exchange of money for services or goods in order even for it would seem to be self-sustaining communities to support themselves.
Sure. Well, money really is a tool. It's a tool of exchange. It's a tool that we all use in our lives, So, and a lot of people have never really taken the time to do the self-reflective and inquiry work around, like, even that question. Like, what is money? And okay, it's a tool, but a tool for what and why? And how do I feel about all of that and stuff? The book that we're writing right now, Manifestation for Dummies, we have a whole part around money mindset, and we dive deep into how people make meaning out of money. It's such a fantastic thing to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. So should we just dive right in with the deadliest mindset mistake? Let's not keep this to the end of the podcast. Let's not like just drop it at the end. Let's just go ahead and do it right now. Okay. So what is the deadliest money mindset mistake?
Right.
Well, you know what? It's so common. It's when we say, I can't afford that, or I don't have the money for that.
I can't afford that. I was just writing about that in the book, actually. It's such a, like you said, it's such a common thing. It's a habit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like watching your subconscious come out of your mouth, but most people don't even realize they're doing it
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because we picked that up somewhere. We're
Mm-hmm.
using I can't afford it for a reason. It speaks to our beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And yeah, it's like watching the subconscious mind come out of our mouths. So why are you saying it's the deadliest?
Well, it's the deadliest because it basically reaffirms for us that we are in money lack. Right.
Yeah.
Every time we say I can't afford it, what we're doing is we are reaffirming the subconscious belief in lack, or our subconscious belief in
And
lack,
our belief in the reality of lack. I was
which
thinking,
actually isn't even a reality,
right.
which we can talk about in a minute.
I thought you were gonna say because it kills abundance.
Well, it kind of, right? It kind of does, right? It's kind of funny, but you're right.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing that ever is actually is abundance, but I don't want to get too far ahead of it. But let's just talk about again. I want to just take a step back and talk about this idea of I can't afford it. 100% you're right. It's I can't afford it is a very socially acceptable
Yes.
excuse for not growing. Very
It's
socially acceptable excuse for not creating or manifesting what we want in our lives, for not taking the opportunities to manifest what we want or become who we really want to be.
It's a phrase where when you say it, it closes the door on whatever conversation you're having as if like, oh, they can't afford it. Okay, conversation closed.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking to somebody else or you're talking to yourself in your head, it's a halt. It's not it and that's why it really relates to lack, but it discontinues the opportunity to continue a conversation. And you're right, because so many people use it like everybody uses it. It's socially acceptable. So it's almost like code.
Mhm.
I can't afford it. Conversation over.
Right. Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, yes, it's socially acceptable, but it's really what that means is that it's socially acceptable to be in a state of lack,
Right.
even though no one likes it.
Absolutely.
So think about that for a second. Just
Absolutely.
pause, right? So what we're agreeing to as a society or chunks of the society, or maybe the communities that you're in, is that it is acceptable to be in a state of lack, even though no one likes it.
We were just talking about this in class yesterday. I was talking with the level 3 students, and we were talking about what kind of conversations, you usually have out there in the world. And we were reflecting on how a lot of conversations that we have, just making general conversation, are really lack-based conversations, and how confronting it can feel to then not be a part of that conversation because all of a sudden it stimulates primal fear in us that we're going to be abandoned from the tribe. Like
Yeah,
nobody's going to
right,
talk to me
exactly.
anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to. People are going to think I'm unrelatable. They're not going to get me. I'm not going to get them. Like, and they're going to say, "Get out." So it really does. It seems like such a little thing, but it really does stimulate this primal fear that I don't belong if we're not willing to have that kind of conversation. And that's what we were talking to the students about.
Yeah, totally. Well, so here's a little challenge. I mean, let's just pop a challenge in here really quickly. If you don't think that this applies to you, or if you're willing to challenge this conversation or this idea that we're talking about, is in your communities, when people say, I can't afford it, come at it with like full abundance with an idea of, well, I can afford anything, and see how people respond to that.
Or even say something like, "Tell me more." Because it's a conversation starter,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So to continue the conversation is different. Actually, I remember, Brian, from a challenge perspective, when I challenged myself to recognize how often I was saying it. Because
Hmm.
I actually didn't think I said it all that often. I recognized I said it sometimes, but I put myself on a little I can't afford it diet. And here, what I did was I said, I'm not allowed to say that. I can say anything else. I'm not allowed to say that. And I started catching myself. Holy cow. I did it so much more than I recognized I did. And I remember the first time I caught myself in the act. My one of my kids was asking me for something in a store.
Yep. Mhm.
And so they wanted something I didn't want to buy, and out it came, I can't afford it. And I had made this commitment to myself to not say it, and yet I couldn't think of anything better to say, and I felt trapped in the moment because I didn't want to buy the thing and I didn't want to acquiesce to the moment, but I also didn't know what to say. And then it was, again, super confronting because I thought, oh my gosh, what's my kid gonna think? That I don't
Mm-hmm.
love and appreciate them because I don't value their thing, but I didn't really, and I didn't want to buy it. And oh my goodness. I remember the store I was in. It was a really tough moment.
Yeah. So going back to what we were talking about again, that's because that um, I can't afford it is a socially acceptable excuse to not challenge our own limiting beliefs, right? Not step into a greater sense of growth for ourselves. And so for you, right, coming up with a different idea, like, listen, we can totally afford that, but I just don't value that.
Right. Or whatever I
Whatever
wanted
it
to
is,
say,
right? That's a
right?
whole different conversation to have with your kid than
100%.
just say, I can't afford it, because that would just kind of cut it off right there. But when we do that, of course, we're teaching our kids and later generations to use that same socially acceptable excuse for them not to grow or
Well,
evolve.
it's actually an excuse to go unconscious.
Mhm.
It really is. It's an excuse to go unconscious. I am going to right now go unconscious, beep, and lean all the way in on my subconscious programming. I mean, a lot of people are trying to excavate their subconscious programming so they can live a more conscious life, but that's a perfect example of going unconscious.
Yeah. So this is like, I hope you're kind of getting this, everyone, is that like this phrase that Ani's talking about, that we're talking about, is put yourself on an I can't afford it diet, or we don't have the money diet. And think of to say anything else other than that. Because just to go one level deeper, you'll start to confront what's actually limiting you in your potential for growth, especially.
Right, because when it comes to money mindset, it's never about the money.
Never about the
Now,
money.
I want to just talk for a moment here in a second about, folks are going to be listening to this going, hey, Ani and Brian, okay, but here's the deal. I really can't afford it. We're going to talk about it in a second. It's never about the money. Okay, so we're doing money mindset here.
Yep.
And whenever you confront something from a mindset perspective with money, if you just say to yourself, it's never about the money, you're going to get so much gold from that.
Yep.
So there are some people who are listening to this saying, hang on, you just don't get my situation. I actually can't afford it. So here's one of the things, and you probably have it in your notes, for us to talk about. When we say that there's always resources available, what that's doing is it's aligning your mindset with the natural laws. Okay. And you can either align your mindset with the natural laws or not. It's really your choice, but the natural laws are governing existence anyway. So you might as well. We've done a bunch of podcasts about the natural laws, by the way. So you can search through and look for some more and find other topics on this
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So let's just come back to it's never about the money. So now we've offered you actually two really powerful strategies to challenge your own money mindset issues. The first one is put yourself on that I can't afford it diet. The next one is say to yourself, it's never about the money. And literally those two things alone can move mountains in your own money mindset. Just want to say that right there.
Maybe turn.
Right. So why is it never about the money? Well, money is actually like air. If we go back to air for a second, air is everywhere.
Yeah.
There's nowhere that there isn't air, right? And money's the same way. Money is everywhere. If you leave your home and drive down the street, assuming you don't live on an island somewhere or in the middle of the woods where there's no other buildings, cars, shops, stores, anything, anywhere around, drive down any city in the country that you live in and look around at all the money. How much money is in the cars that people are driving, the buildings that are all around you, the stores, the food, the shops, the clothes, the hair, the makeup, the gym, whatever it is, right? Everywhere. There's money literally everywhere.
There's money everywhere.
Just like there's air everywhere.
Right. And money takes many forms. We have to remember when we think about it in our heads, we think about cash, but that's not how it shows up. Like Brian's saying, the money is in the cars, it's in the stores, it's in the hairdos,
Yep.
it's in the credit card, which it's invisible. What do you exchange numbers and then where's the money? It's in the stuff. It's in the services that are provided to you. It's everywhere.
Right. So Air is everywhere. Money is everywhere. Now, air is everywhere, and you know it's everywhere, even if you can't see it. You know it's everywhere because you're acquiring it, and then you're taking it in and you're letting it go, um, probably 12 times a minute, right? You're breathing in and breathing out all day long, 20,000 breaths a day. You're bringing air in, air is going out, air is coming in, air is coming out. So
Kind of
it's
interesting,
kind of
right?
interesting, right? Because the money's just, air is just coming in and coming out.
Not thinking about it or going, I can't,
There's not enough
I'm not
air, right? We're
worried.
not hoarding air,
No.
you
Oh my
know?
gosh, the next one there might not be enough.
There might not be air tomorrow. There might not be, but I got to say too, it is actually a little distressing if you do have a pulmonary disorder and you actually have a hard time taking a breath, right?
Getting
That
in.
gets very distressing.
Right.
That links back to actually one of the fears, natural fears that we're born with. We're not going to talk about that right now. So that's like kind of like a really deep core physiological issue that, can be connected to other lack experiences in our life.
Sure.
But let's just come back to air and money for a
And
second.
that's actually a difficulty with us processing and bringing in the air, but it's not that the air is not there.
Correct. The air is there, right? The air is always there. So if you don't believe the air is always there, I don't know how to help you because like just
Sorry.
it's there. It's always there. The same way that money is always there. Even when you can't see it, it's always there. Now with money, you can see it. Look in the different forms that it shows up in, like what Ani's talking about. Now here's the difference. With air, we have a pre-programmed capacity to already know and be able to bring air in and put it back out.
It's a subconscious program.
It's a subconscious program, right?
Right.
We're born with it. We're born how to respirate. Bring air in, put air out. Bring air in. By the way, if there's a problem if you don't get enough air in, but there's also a problem if you hold your air and don't let it out. So air is always an exchange.
Yeah, you might be full of hot air.
It might be full of hot air, right? Which isn't good.
I know what that's
Yeah.
like.
So,
But
so there's always an exchange of energy. Air is energy essentially, right? It's actually the fuel that our body uses to make energy is oxygen is part of that fuel in the Krebs cycle. If you've ever heard that term before, you know anything about physiology, right? We use oxygen to make energy, and then we breathe off carbon dioxide as a byproduct of that process internally. So we're always have this energetic exchange going on as we take in air and put out air. Now, here's the problem. Most people are not programmed with how to go about bringing in money or letting money go.
yeah, this makes perfect sense to me. We're subconsciously programmed to bring air in and bring air out. We're not subconsciously programmed to be able to do that with money.
Right.
It's really that simple.
It's not that the money's not there.
Right.
The money is everywhere. We're just not taught, programmed, learn how to bring money in and let money go.
Yeah.
Both of those you need to have.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the natural laws at play right there, that there's this flow of money. Money comes in, money goes out,
Yep.
just like air does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, even people who have quote unquote plenty of money, and what the heck does that mean? Law of relativity at play, and how we compare. But even people who have quote unquote plenty of money still have stuff with lack mindset.
They can, yeah.
And I can't afford it. Yeah, they can.
They have a hard time letting money go.
Sure, exactly. So yeah, so it's not like if we just got to a certain place where I had X amount of dollars in the bank. Oh, this is really interesting. You know me in statistics. I never really remember all the information, and this was kind of a while ago. I was listening to the radio, and somebody had done a study about how much money people thought they needed to feel secure. And so we live in the US, and in other parts of the world, people had, certain amounts of money, whatever, thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever. When they interviewed Americans about it, they felt like they needed like millions of bajillions of dollars in the bank. And the study found that Americans have this really inflated idea of how much money they need to feel secure.
Interesting.
That was really funny.
Yeah, well, I think that says a lot about potentially insecurity underneath the hood of what's going on.
Because it's never about the money.
Never about the money. Okay, so I just love this conversation. It's so rich. Hope people are taking notes on this. So we'll just back up for a second. The deadliest mistake you can ever make is to say, I can't afford it or we don't have the money. Because what that does is it cuts off the universe's capacity to actually show you how to bring in the money because the money is always there. It's basically saying I can't afford it is basically akin to holding your breath.
Henry Ford said, whether you can or you can't, you're right.
Mm.
I love that. I mean, just it's right there.
Yeah.
I can't afford it. I can afford it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So how do we start to kind of turn this around? Well, I always we talk a lot here at the Somatic Coaching Academy that what you cannot find inside your own body, you will never find elsewhere. It's like our that's our mantra here. It's like what you cannot find in your own body, you will never find elsewhere. So you need to find abundance inside of yourself. You need to find abundance inside of yourself if you ever want to find it outside of yourself.
Yep.
Thanks for coming this week. So let's back up again and ask you this question. When you are perceiving a lack of money, like when you're perceiving a lack of money, like where do you feel that in your body? What does it feel like? Where do you feel it? What does it feel like? You just want to be able to get in tune with that to understand that lack mindset starts in your body as a sensation.
Yep. It's a really good thing to do. So the next time you find yourself, you're doing your can't afford it challenge and you go to say, can't afford it, check in. Where do you feel something?
And what does it feel like, right?
Yeah.
Because that sensation is your real problem.
Yeah.
Right? That's the real problem. Because as long as you are experiencing that sensation as a part of whatever lack pattern you've been trained in, you've been conditioned, and you learned, you picked up somewhere along the line, like the money abundance will elude you.
It's really interesting, Brian. I was having a conversation with the associate coach team the other day, and we were talking about how people are so in their heads. And a lot of people don't understand how in their heads they are until they start working with us, because a lot of other coaching and therapy and self development kinds of things will just kind of stimulate your intellect all day long, and you can continue to avoid. A lot of people who work with our team will have done a tremendous amount of self-development work. They've gone to therapy, had coaching, read books, taken courses, are coaches and consultants and experts themselves. And that idea about cueing in with your body, as simple as it is quite a profound shift for a lot of folks. So, hey, if you're listening and you try this on and it's tough, we understand, because it's not something that everybody's all that used to.
Yep. And you have to become aware of it, right? Because these patterns, like these lack patterns, and the lack messages we receive, and sometimes these messages are observational too, right? And sometimes we hear them directly from our caregivers as we're growing up when they told you I can't afford it, but other times it's observational, right? And so we're getting sensations in our bodies. We are getting messaging. It gets woven into our physiology via neuromuscular reflexes is kind of how they get woven in there. And it happens, oftentimes during very specific developmental periods in our lives too,
Right.
when we're more, let's say, open or prone to certain kinds of programming, as we go along too.
Yeah.
And so all that stuff kind of gets into our system, and then we don't even realize that's there because this is then the water that we're swimming in. So hopefully, again, what we're doing today is helping you to find some ways to be able to get outside of your fishbowl, to look at the water you're swimming in and saying, oh my gosh, like I say I can't afford it. I always think it's about the money. Not that it's never about the money. I never realized money's everywhere. Like there's all these opportunities to really start to kind of think about how you were conditioned, programmed, trained to observe money or its relationship with the world in general.
Yep, probably nobody ever sat down with you as a kid and said, listen, here's the thing. You're just going to say you can't afford it like 50% of the time, and that's how you're going to handle stuff. Nobody sits us down and says that kind of thing.
Yep.
I mean, one of the key ways we learn too, Brian, is by vibrationally. So it's like what people aren't saying, but we pick up on, and the amount of muscle contraction that has to happen in a body to contain lack. Like it takes a tremendous amount of energy to do that, to contain lack and fear and all that stuff. And, probably a lot of people grew up with caregivers who were containing quite a bit of that and maybe never talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. I have a very vivid memory growing up of my father paying the monthly bills at his little roll top desk that he had in the corner of the living room. And I remember him every month like writing out the bills and muttering to himself and like getting really stressed out about what was going to get paid, and everything always got paid, but it was laborious every month. And it to me it felt like, again, talk about learning vibrationally, to me it felt like there was like a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety and uncertainty
Yeah.
and all the things, and I'm just kind of picking that up as a child and linking together, oh, there's something bad or difficult or challenging or unpleasant about paying your bills and all that stuff. There's other things too that happen, but I have a very vivid memory of that
Yeah, I don't know what it
experience.
is, but money, man, money's hard.
Yeah, for a lot of people it is, and it
Right, but that's kind of
represents
what
so much.
the child without having all of the context around it just kind of is like money, hard, challenging, got it,
Right.
moving on.
Yeah, exactly. But we're here really to help kind of start to challenge some of those old patterns, shift them into more of an abundance kind of mindset. So, one thing I think you can start working on, one thing I like to talk about and think about and work with our students and our clients is start seeing things as only abundant, even if there's an abundance of things that you don't like or want.
Right. This goes along with the natural laws. We're not going to explain the whole thing around how it works, but abundance is everywhere, like Brian said, even if it's an abundance of problems or an abundance of annoying or abundance of I can't afford it.
Right, an abundance of whatever, right? So,
Abundance of challenge,
and
abundance of
this is
stress.
the first shift you have to be able to make to come into more of an abundance mindset, which we're going to talk more about in next week's episode, by the way. But the idea is we've got to make this pivot someplace to thinking about things in abundance and not lack
It's
anymore.
such a huge mindset shift to be able to do this because the what we focus on grows kind of idea, and to be able to acknowledge that there's abundance everywhere then gets you to the place where you can see abundance in the form that you want it.
Correct.
But at first you just have to be able to see abundance.
Yes, exactly.
So it's not going to be like this forever where it's just like, oh my God, it's just an abundance of crap.
Mm,
Once you get to that place where you're seeing abundance everywhere, then you can start to shift it and work with it and
yeah.
transmute really how it shows up.
Exactly. So, and remember, when you're in any kind of change process like this, and you're shifting what you're paying attention to, or mindset shifts, in this case from lack to abundance, like Ani said, it's not about feeling better right away. It's
100%.
about seeing something different. So go after different, not better. And if you're seeing something different, that's on the way to better. But if you're always chasing the just want to feel better, then oftentimes you just stay stuck where you are. So the idea of just shifting to, I'm going to look at everything in terms of abundance now: abundance of problems, abundance of challenges, abundance of good stuff, abundance of stuff
Yeah.
I like, don't like, whatever it is, but it's all about abundance. That's the first shift that you can make. And then you can start practicing working with sensations in your body that feel abundant to you, sensations that you would call abundant type sensations. So what would those be for you? I can ask you, Ani, what would those be like for you? But we can also, hey, listeners, what are those sensations for you? Sensations of abundance. Because again, what you cannot feel on the inside, you're never going to see on the outside.
Yeah. And we're not going to go into this whole thing either, but what we're talking about is sensations, not emotions. So if you find yourself going joy, happiness, get to the sensations. That's what we're saying, not the emotional construct.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just back up again and do it really just a quick summary here, because I love summaries. I think because we can talk and we're kind of having kind of flow of spontaneous conversation and those types of things. But just let's
Let's make it
summarize it here for a
technical.
second. So here's the thing: the deadliest mistake you can make, I'll say it again, is to say I don't have the money or I can't afford it, because what that is a validation of your limiting beliefs. So if you have an opportunity that presents itself to you that could help you become the person you want to become, help you do the things you want to do, or help you have the things you want to have in your life, and the opportunity presents itself, as soon as you say, I don't have the money or I can't afford it, and that's the reason you use for not taking on the opportunity, you have just fed your limiting belief.
Listen,
just want to say that.
If you want to feed your limiting beliefs and live a life of limitation, by all means, go ahead. We are not trying to take that away from you.
Right. Yeah. So you might
But if you don't, then
here you go. So then you might think, well, but I don't have the money in my bank account to pay for the thing that I want to do. Now, that's a real valid thing. So remember, it's never about the money. Money is like air. So it's just a matter of figuring out how to bring in the air, bring in the money to be able to fund the thing that you want to do or go to.
Right.
Because there's always money. It's never about not having enough money. The money's always there.
Right. And the money could show up in the form of an opportunity to make money. It can also land as a big fat check that everybody loves in your mailbox. Both of those kinds of ways are possible. But either one of those things is going to materialize after you make the decision.
Say that again, because this is really important.
What you want is going to materialize after you make the decision.
Right.
So it's not about saying, if you're going to stop saying I can't afford it, you go, well, I can afford it. Then you make a decision to move forward with it. And then the materialization happens of being able to bring the money in.
Exactly. And in the process of materializing the money, you change.
Mm-hmm. Boy, we could just give you so many stories.
So many stories.
So many stories. It works, and that's the natural laws at play. That's using the natural laws to live an abundant life.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so we got our list going here. You know the deadliest mistake now. You know it's never about money. You know that money is everywhere. You know that if you're perceiving lack, it's just time to look at everything in terms of abundance. There's abundance of everything, even things you don't like. You got that also. You're also can start paying attention to, well, what do abundance sensations feel like inside of you, and start working and practicing with those. Because here's kind of the punchline for this, folks. If you're waiting for something outside of you, if you're waiting for outside circumstances to make you feel abundant inside, then you're going to be waiting a long time. And you're always a victim to what's going on outside of you.
You're not a creator.
You're not a creator, right? You're a creator when your sensations become the cause, not the effect of what you want in your life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really love this conversation, Brian. And I have a feeling that listeners are going to want to share it with key people in their lives.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So you're probably listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, I wish my husband, wife, best friend, mother, father, sister, brother, uncle could hear this. Share it with them. Pop it on in the car while you're driving. Take a walk together. Listen. Send it to them send them a text. The reason it's so important is because when you live with other people who can align with these ideas and do these challenges with you, that's really the secret sauce to bring it to life. Mm-hmm. So, rather than sitting there going, I wish they would listen to something like this, send it to them.
Or have a listening party.
Yeah, that would be great.
Trap them in the car and make them listen. That's what I do.
Exactly.
When we go on a drive, I'm like, Ani, can we listen to this thing together? And I trap her.
Trap your family members.
Trap your family members listening to the podcast. All right, friends. Thanks so much for joining us again this week for the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. Make sure you check in next week for kind of part 2 of this conversation on money mindset.
Yep. So for now, have an abundant week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.